everyone feeling after seeing the direction and vision that Triple Whale is going in? I want to hear. Okay. And if you guys have any questions at all about what this means for your brand, again, find those Triple Whale team members that are wearing those Whalies shirts, and we're more than happy to help out. Next up, I am so honored and excited about this next session and this next speaker that will be joining us on the stage. So everyone, I want you all to give a warm welcome to Harley Finkelstein, president of Shopify, and Maxx Blank, co-founder of Triple Whale.
Awesome.
This is the only talk I've given in years that I brought a notebook because I assume you're going to hit me some questions at the end that I'm going to have to take back to the team. Changes you need with Shopify. So legit, this is a real thing. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Pleasure. Thanks for changing the city for me.
If Harley's
Do you guys know that story? He asked me to speak, and it was the same date, I think, right?
Yeah, in LA.
And it was going to be in LA, and I was like, I'd love to do it. A huge fan of Maxx and AJ, and frankly, the community. And you know, I don't say this to like everyone, but like you're my people. This is like the community, right? And I was like, there's no way I can make it to LA. I have family stuff and I have a couple of things for Shopify. And I'm like, but if you were in New York, if you do New York next year, I'd love to come. And he's like, let me get back to you. And in pure Maxx Triple Whale fashion, you're like, fuck it, let's do it. So here we are. So thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to dive in here. So you flew all the way from New York. I think we've got about 15 to 20 minutes here right now.
Montreal.
Montreal.
Yeah.
You flew in to New York from Montreal.
Okay. Yeah. I'll carry you through this if I have to. Yeah. It's what we do.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So you had a very cool idea for this talk. Non-obvious strategies for e-commerce, for growth.
Yeah.
What piques your interest in that specific topic?
I actually think that Shopify effectively is a company that is based on this idea of what is unobvious and what is correct. Obviously, if it's not correct, it doesn't really matter. But if it's obvious, a lot of other people will do it. There's no alpha in things that are obvious. The obvious thing, you know, going back 20 years ago, was to start the snowboard shop. The unobvious thing was to take the software that was powering the snowboard shop and effectively commercialize it so that many millions of people can now power it. If you sort of look at every product that Shopify has. Let's just take the App Store because it's something that you are all. Just show of hands here. How many of you in the room are merchants? Okay, and how many of you are app developers or programmers? Okay, so if you think about the App Store itself, the app program, that ecosystem, that idea of actually inviting what is now, I think, something like 12,000 app developers to build on top of Shopify. Seems obvious now, but it was unobvious then. The idea was, okay, let's figure out what every single merchant wants on the platform and simply build features for it. The unobvious thing was, let's make sure that what most people need most of the time is the greatest piece of software that we can build ourselves physically and technologically, and then allow third parties to come on and build use cases that we could not anticipate on our own. What ends up happening is everyone that uses Shopify today has 100% product market fit, regardless of what their particular use case is. And so this idea of unobvious business models has sort of been part of the DNA of Shopify. Even in terms of something as simple as when we're about to celebrate our 9-year anniversary of the IPO. May 21st, I think, 2015. We went public in New York Stock Exchange, not too far from here. It wasn't an obvious thing to go public. I mean, we were fairly small relative to a lot of companies now that you all know very well that are like, I don't know, like 20, 30, 50, $100 billion privately held companies that have not gone public. We went public in an early stage because I think our initial valuation at the IPO was something like $1 billion. We went public because it felt like that would give us leverage to remain an independent company for longer. And that has been the story. On the merchant side, if you think about, anyone in the room know a brand or merchant called Lafika? Anyone? It's kind of like, it's not really that well known. Well, Lafika is the last purchase I made from Shopify store, personally. And Lafika makes a kettle that looks like a DJ booth. Not kidding. The Venn diagram overlap of that is like Harley Finkelstein, like right smack in the middle of that, right? Like if any of you follow me, you know that I love to DJ. I've been DJing my whole life, but also I love tea. I own a tea company on the side called Firebelly. Somehow through the Shop app, Lafika was able to target me as the ideal customer. Now, when I actually initially started my search, it was kettle. Firebelly makes good stuff. We make like teapots, we don't make kettles. So I needed something that was a kettle, so I started there. And very quickly, the algorithm realized that Harley also buys a lot of DJ equipment as well. He buys a lot of DJ stuff. And so selling a kettle that looks like basically a turntable is the most unobvious business strategy ever. There's no consultancy on the planet that would have ever recommended it. And I'm pretty sure they're gonna kill it this year. Like, I found it, I love it, I'm talking about it, telling all of you. We have millions of brands on Shopify. I've mentioned one brand so far, Lafika. I'm dressed head to toe in James Purse, by the way, haven't mentioned them at all. But there is an unobvious thing about that, and I think those are the brands that in the future will continue to dominate. Another great one that I don't wear is Brunt Workwear. Do you know Brunt Workwear? Any of you know Brunt? Okay, Brunt Workwear, I don't know why are you wearing it, or you just like the brand? Okay, Brunt Workwear, someone realized that everyone working construction sites are wearing the same boots, and they suck. They're all steel-toed, they all look the same, they're kind of like, gritty and like construction site look, vibe, but they're not comfortable. And so Brunt Workwear said, let's actually create a specific boot for a specific type of customer, and then figure out the right channels to get in front of them. Brunt Workwear is never gonna do like the on-running thing. They're not gonna do the 5-toe finger thing. They're gonna do one thing and do it really, really well. And I think those are the companies that are unobvious that will continue to dominate.
That's incredible.
That's a long answer to a very short question. Sorry.
Talking. I think I could share from my personal story. Running Madison Braids, we'd sell hair braids and hair accessories. And one unobvious strategy that we utilized was actually just re-engineering the way we shipped it. So from going from a box, a small little box, like a necklace box, to going to like a flat, like a USPS flat, took the cost down from $3 to I think 75 cents landed.
Wow.
And that's an unobvious strategy.
That's right. Yeah, and by the way, there are other ones that are more sort of, pop culture in the zeitgeist. I mean, I think what Hailey Bieber did with the phone case last month, where effectively she created a phone case that allows you to put your lipstick in the back of it, kind of now seems obvious, but at the time was unobvious. And given all these incredible direct-to-consumer brands that exist around the world, specifically in cosmetics, it was Hailey Bieber that actually was the one that said, on the back of my phone, let me create a case and my lipstick goes in. And now you're seeing a ton of other companies copy it. Those type of things, I think, are not just good business models. I think that actually allows you to separate from the entire, from everybody else, and that's how you'll win.
For sure. Thinking outside the box.
Yep.
So what are some of the new e-commerce opportunities that you're seeing emerge in 2024?
Maybe the least sexy one, but most interesting one that I think right now that exists for all of you in the room that are looking for new opportunities is B2B, is wholesale. The obvious thing for me to say here is the famous maxim that 80% of all retail is still done offline. There's so much opportunity in physical retail. Everyone knows that. Walk around New York, walk around Soho. It's basically like Shopify Row. It's amazing. I love walking around Soho because it's a reminder. It's like, Crew and Alo and Viore and the Shopify store. It's ground zero. It's perfect. It warms my heart. But I think B2B is less obvious, so non-obvious, but a massive opportunity. In fact, I don't know the exact numbers now, but I recently looked at how large the wholesale market is relative to retail. It's bigger, but yet none of us in the room really focus on B2B or wholesale for the most part. I mean, if any show of anyone working on B2B, okay, wow. So there's 3 here, and this is sort of, again, this is the epicenter of modern retail and commerce in the room. So 3 out of 500 is still fairly low. I think B2B is interesting because the pitch that we made to Carrier recently came over to Shopify for B2B to sell industrial heating and cooling products. This pitch was actually fairly simple. It was, you sell to retailers all over the world. What's their user flow like? What's their customer flow like? Let's actually map it out. And it turned out It was abysmal. But it didn't matter because everyone, all the purchasers, the consumers in the B2B world were used to buying in this really kind of shitty way. This is fairly new, so the numbers are still out there, but I suspect that everyone that buys from Carrier going forward will begin to tell their other wholesale partners, we're not willing to do this whole fax machine BS anymore. Like, why is our experience so poor? And on Carrier, it's so incredible. And so I think an unobvious new area of business in sort of our collective industry is B2B. Maybe the second one, I think is generally enterprise. I mentioned on the last earnings call in late January, I think, that Oscar de la Renta is coming on. One of my favorite new brands in sort of that world is a company called 11T. Do you guys heard of 11T? Anyone in the room? Some of you have. 11T is like, it's Cucinelli, but like it's like actually like humans can afford it. And I think 11D, they have a couple stores in New York, LA, Miami. They have one in Toronto. They have an amazing online store as well. They have actually proven to me that high-end brands can do an incredible job online. And I still think if you want to buy something from one of the major LVMH houses, it's still very, very difficult to do so unless you live in New York City. I live in Canada. Those stores don't exist there. And therefore, I think those brands are missing out on an incredible market. I think that will change the next 3 to 5 years.
Incredible. So what do you think leaders today who are building, what do you think they should be focused while building today?
I think it sounds sort of cheesy to give this advice on a stage like this in front of like this, again, like this, it's a super impressive crowd who goes deep on commerce and retail the way that I do and you do, Max. But I will say that I think the antidote to companies that lose their way is mission. I'm going into my 15th year at Shopify, 40 years old, so I've been there for more than a third of my life. The reason that I'd love to stay at this company the rest of my life, if Toby and the board will have me, is that fundamentally the mission of our company is also my personal mission. I think entrepreneurship is the greatest tool for humans to solve problems, to self-actualize, to level the playing field for themselves, to be creative. And ultimately, to me, I have not found anything else, any other company that is creating more of that entrepreneurship in the world than Shopify. So I think mission does two things. One is it galvanizes the team. It makes it easy for people to understand what are we doing here? Why are we doing this? But the second it does is it makes it so that people whose mission, the company's mission reflects their own mission, they can stay at that company for a very, very long time. And one thing that doesn't get talked a lot about in terms of company building, especially in terms of large scale, publicly traded $100 billion companies, is tenure. The average tenure of people that work at Shopify is very high relative to all of our peers because fundamentally there are people at Shopify whose life's work is entrepreneurship and they believe in Shopify's mission so much that rather than doing their life's work on their own, they're coming to be part of this collective journey of
Sure.
Spreading more entrepreneurship. And I know a lot of you in the audience, certainly Max and AJ, I've gotten to know you guys so well and understand what you guys are doing. When we meet, we talk about mission. We talk about the product and new opportunities, new APIs, and where analytics and reporting is going, and multi-attribution, all that stuff that I think is important in our sort of nerdy way. But we also talk about what are we actually doing here? What's the mission
100%.
here? And I think mission is it is the silver bullet for everything all of us really want to do long term.
There's no doubt. And it's incredible how much Shopify brings access to allow people to do that, with all the tools. Me personally, AJ, a lot of the team, it's incredible. So there's about 500 brands here. I think there's a lot more streaming on Twitter.
There's like tens of thousands of people streaming.
Yeah.
Congratulations. I mean, this is
incredible.
This is amazing. Yeah.
Truly. What is the most important advice you could give to brands right now to really grow in 2024?
I think it goes back to the beginning of the conversation around unobvious things. I think there is this old philosophy around retail, which is that it was basically a zero-sum type of model. Mm-hmm. we're in New York, so let's just use New York as an example. If retailer A is next door to retailer B, and retailer A finds some new opportunity for growth, a discount system, a local newspaper to advertise in, some sort of form of growth, there is no way the retailer A is going to walk next to retailer B and say, got this great idea. You should use it too. Why? Because fundamentally, the assumption, pretty much in the history of retail and commerce, has been there is a fixed size of the pie. And that zero-sum thinking, I think, I don't believe in zero-sum thinking. I'm sort of a positive-sum guy, optimistic guy generally. But I think in this sort of new era of retail, that is so far from the truth. And actually, one of the reasons that many of you in the crowd have been so successful is because so many of you included, are building in public. And building in public is not just the highlight reel. Often, I've seen some of you do this, like personally, you actually share the blooper reel. You say, I tried this thing, it didn't work. Usually it's like, I don't know, Meta's application's not working today, or there's some sort of bug and it overspent or underspent or something like that. But you share those stories. This version of retail and commerce, I think, is much more, let's figure out how to grow the pie itself. And we'll worry about slicing up the pie later on. So that's the first thing, is that I think this idea, like building in public, keep doing that and do it and don't just share the good stuff, share the bad stuff too. The second thing is, once you figure out who your customer is, just go so deep on that customer. This is being live streamed, so maybe they'll see this, but like, I don't know the guys from Brunt Workwear that much, but I'd be very disappointed if they create like some sort of slide. I think Brunt Workwear should not do slides. I think there are companies that should do slides, and I think there's companies that should. It makes sense, but I would be disappointed if they do that, because they figured out that their actual target demographic is this particular person at this particular industry. Kill it for them. Make sure that they are beloved by that customer, and focus on that. And I think the cool part about going back to that 80-20 retail online to offline split is, if you think about the growth rate of retail, in the US, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 20%, 18, 22%, but let's call it 20% year on year. It's actually higher in the UK. It's a little bit lower in Canada, and the rest of the world, I mean, China is a whole different story, but ex-China, it's it's in that rate. So if you simply just extrapolate the growth of online retail or digital commerce over the next 10 years, it's astronomical. There is more opportunity in this particular band of business than almost any other band of business, maybe other than AI right now, which I think adds to this whole flywheel effect.
Sure.
So my feeling is that figure out who your customer is, go deep on that customer. If you're targeting DJs who also like to drink tea, there's not 100 people like that. I'm not joking, there's probably 10,000 people like that. And if all 10,000 of those people know about your company and half convert, and of those half, some 10% of that half ends up becoming a force multiplier and starts posting about your DJ powered kettle, you got a real business that is going to last for a very, very long time. And that's why I'm optimistic about the future of our industry, because we're all gonna win together doing this.
Incredible. And the point you said about how not limiting it, right? It's not just Main Street, right? It's the world now.
That's right.
And we have those tools.
That's right.
Amazing. I think now we're gonna move into a little bit of a QA. A Q&A with the crowd. Get your notepad out. I think we got Ethan over here on the left side who's got a...
Does this work? Oh.
Yep.
All right, so if you want to ask a question, raise your hand, and I'm just going to throw this, and then we'll go from there. All right, who's got one?
You talked about the mission for Shopify, and I have an idea of what I think Shopify's mission is, but I'd love to hear what you think the mission is.
Yeah, I mean, I would sort of articulate it differently depending on who the audience is. For this audience, I think it's about creating more opportunity, for entrepreneurship. That's it, full stop. If I was on CNBC, I'd talk about, democratizing direct-to-consumer and what I think, everyone that has a brand should not just sell into one single channel, but should sell into multi-channel. But in this crowd, more entrepreneurship on the world, not just merchants, more engineers, more developers, more app partners, more theme partners. This idea that many of us in the room have something that we love doing on weekends. I think Bill Gates used the thing you love most between 12 and 16 years old is probably the thing you should do the rest of your life. When I was 12 to 16 years old, I was building non-successful companies. The non-successful thing, let's forget about that for a second. I'm now building companies. I love doing that. And so I think this idea that when you hit the launch button on your store, or when you hit the submit button on an app or a theme that you're submitting to Shopify, that your personal identity changes and now you're an entrepreneur, and actually you can make a better life for you, your family, your kids and grandkids. You can create, in some cases, multi-generational wealth from that launch button. That's the coolest fucking thing I've ever heard about in my entire life. And I want more of that to exist in the world. And that's the mission of Shopify.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Who's next? Here we go.
Good catch.
Athlete. Harvey, you talked about the B2B solution that Shopify offers. Can you explain that a little bit more? And will that help merchants with kind of the rising cost of acquisition to get customers to their Shopify sites? Does that become an alternative?
Yeah, I mean, credit to Tim and Joey from Allbirds for actually pushing us in that direction. But basically what happened was a couple years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, Allbirds started to get purchase orders from Nordstrom's. Allbirds was this like storied story on Shopify, right? Like homegrown success story, became dominant, publicly traded company and all that. So, and we were very close. I'm still very close to the co-founders. But they began to get purchase orders from Nordstrom's and a couple other large, Nordstrom's, and a couple other large retailers. And effectively the way that Joey articulated was, he's like, well, now I'm running 2 companies. I'm running direct-to-consumer Allbirds and I'm running wholesale Allbirds. Why? It doesn't really matter. On the direct-to-consumer Allbirds, you have multiple channels. You have like your email channel, you have your online store, you have your point of sale, you have your social commerce channels. You have all these channels here. And there's this one other channel which feels like it's just disconnected from the rest of the business. It's not. It's the same products. The pricing is different because you're selling in bulk. The payment terms are different because you effectively get payment terms like net 30 or net 90, whatever the retailer gives you. And it became obvious to us that if we talk about the future of retail being retail everywhere, across every channel, agnostically, one of those channels will be B2B. And so we began to sort of add B2B as an appendage beside the e-commerce channel. And then a bunch of big wholesale-only retailers came to us and said, can we just use this to sell, to only do wholesale, only do B2B? Companies like Carrier, which is not a consumer brand, which is a wholesale brand. And so the way now that it's evolving is we think that every retailer on Shopify has an opportunity to go into a physical store to do wholesale, and now it's easier to do so on Shopify. We have a great partnership with Faire, for example. Do you guys know Faire? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Faire, for example, does that quite well, and they're fully integrated into Shopify, and so you can test out what it would be like to have your products on someone else's shelves. If that converts really well, maybe you now go and meet with a buyer at Bloomingdale's or Erewhon or something. That's what happened with Firebelly. We're a direct-to-consumer tea company. That's my little sort of side hustle. And Erewhon and Bloomingdale's asked if we can sell to them, and we did. But the fact that I have one centralized dashboard, one retail operating system that allows me to run the entire business, regardless of whatever channel, that I think is really important. And I do think that a lot of consumer brands, direct-to-consumer brands, should consider wholesale. It's just another channel. And actually, in some cases, the common criticism of wholesale is that the margins are lower. That's true, but you also get in front of a lot of people. You're effectively borrowing customers from those particular retailers, introducing your brand. The next time that consumer wants to buy something, they may not go into Erewhon, they may go to firebellytea.com. And I think it's a great new channel that most people have not actually activated. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so this is on. Harley, I wanted to ask about the Shop app. For everyone in this room, how do you position that in terms of how merchants should think about your guys' ability to generate demand?
Yeah. Remember, the history of the Shop app is I think, fairly well known, which it started as an order tracking application where merchants who were buying across the entire internet wanted a single place to actually track all their packages. and they began to use the Shop app for that. Originally, it was called the Arrive app, and then became Shop app. What we realized about the way that the way that consumers were using the Shop app was it was becoming this like companion of theirs. So I buy a new pair of pants or a new t-shirt from James Purse, I'm waiting for it, I'm tracking the package. It's a great opportunity for James Purse to say, hey, while you're waiting for like your like winter gear, summer's coming soon, you should look at these particular products. And actually what we were realizing is that the way consumers were spending on the Shop app was different than the way they were shopping on other marketplaces. There was much more intentionality. In some cases, they were spending more money. And so what I think the Shop app is today is I think it's this beautiful curated marketplace of your favorite brands that allows the algorithm to say to someone like me, you've been buying a bunch of DJ stuff. We know that, check. We also know you're currently looking for a kettle, check. We actually have a product. There's something like 300 million products on the Shop app. I think it's like 280 million to be specific, but it's somewhere in that range on the Shop app. The fact that the Shop app was able to tell me, this is probably a product for you, I never would have found that company again. I never would have found that brand or that product, and I'm happy that I did. And so I don't think it's gonna be this universal search where you go in and type in like detergent or like deodorant. But because it knows my entire shopping history, it can make really intelligent decisions, which frankly from a consumer are delightful to say, you don't know about this thing and you should. And I think that's where the Shop app is right now. It'll continue to get better. The algorithm keeps getting better. We now have it web-based, which is shop.app, which anyone can go to. Shop.ai, where you can actually ask a concierge, I'm planning barbecue for my daughter. She's into like rainbows and unicorns. Like, what do I need to buy? Here's my budget, and I need the products here within like 5 days. And it can actually show me what I should be purchasing. That I think is it's an amazing experience that I don't think exists anywhere else. I use the Shop app myself daily. I love it. Yeah, thank you.
All right. So this is a question for both Harley and Maxx. As the places where people shop online are seemingly continuing to fragment, with the publisher shops, Temu, etc. Where is the future going with Shopify and attribution in tying together consumer journeys and business information for brands?
I mean, for us, it's bringing that data together into one place and then tying those journeys together and allowing you to access that and being very intentional of how you approach a customer.
Yeah, I mean, you need to know where your traffic is coming from. You need to know the quality of your traffic on a per source basis. Let me zoom out for a quick sec. I don't think right now, if you are a solo entrepreneur, a solo merchant right now, meaning you're running this whole business by yourself, I don't believe it is okay for you just to know about your specific product that you're making. I actually think we all need to be polymaths a little bit, at least in the early stages of the business. And in order to be a polymath in the early stages of building any type of retailer or business for that matter, you have to have great access to data. And I think that 10 years ago, if you were a solo entrepreneur running a business on Shopify, you were doing a lot of CSV downloads and exports, and you were basically putting a bunch of stuff into Tableau if you were really good. But generally, it was mostly Excel spreadsheets, and I don't think Notion was around there either. So it was just Excel spreadsheets effectively. That's a terrible way for you to build a company by yourself. The reason I'm more hopeful now that you're going to see very large brands built by solo entrepreneurs or solo founders is because you now actually have everything you need right in front of you. You can make better decisions faster. And actually, this is where some of my favorite small companies, like the Teapot Company, I think is probably going to give I don't know what the biggest company in that space is, but they're going to give them a run for their money. Why? Because they're figuring out there's in one of these big corporations that makes kettles, there's probably a team of people called analytics. And they're using all types of data, and they're using all types of spreadsheets, and they're having meetings and conferences and Zoom meetings and all that stuff. And they're competing with one person sitting at their mom's kitchen table who has the Shopify dashboard, has Triple Whale, has a lot of the apps you're creating. those are superpowers. Those are unfair advantages. And what that means is because they're not making decisions based on committee, they're able to move faster, test more. In many ways, the future of retail and commerce belongs into the hands of people that are most entrepreneurial. And the unfair advantage the large companies had, which was labor and capital, is going away. Like, it's diminishing marginal returns because tech is just making everything so much easier. And on top of that, then you add something like AI, which right from Shopify is saying, did you know that the Pinterest channel is creating, you are getting higher cart sizes, you're getting higher ARPUs from this particular channel than that one. You're like, great, I'm gonna spend more money on buyable pins. And as AI learns more about Shopify, learns more about your business, you're now getting insights at a higher clip than that big company is getting. That's truly that really levels the playing field in a way that's never been done, maybe, in the history of business. And there's some people in front here. This guy seems eager. Oh no. Yeah.
Going back to your B2B solution, I know I work with a lot of apparel businesses, have buys in Nordstrom's, PacSun's, Urban, and all these companies.
Flex, man, flex.
A lot of those relationships are personal relationships or people relationships, sales reps that kind of go out and get those kind of purchase orders. Where does Shopify, except for the dashboard aspect of the business, what's the feedback you're getting from these B2B businesses that Shopify is making it easier, or they prefer using this type of process than, say, the old-fashioned sales process of purchase orders through apparel?
Yeah. When I was 16 years old, I had a watch winder company. It was a huge failure. And I used to go and, based on my own relationships that I would develop, I'd go to these stores and ask them to buy my watch winders. I get the personal relationship thing, but usually the way it worked is this. Eventually, the buyer at the retailer would say to me, all right, I'll buy 12 units of your watch winder. And I'd be like, great, I'll get back to you with all the details. I'll get back to you with all the details is over. What I can do now is I can say, great, let me pull up my laptop, my iPad, my iPhone, whatever it is, and let's actually complete it right now. And by the way, if you want to make any changes, here's your own dashboard on your side to do so. And by the way, if next purchase order you buy 2 dozen, not 1 dozen, you'll know exactly what your pricing discounts are going to be. So I actually don't think you should remove the personal relationship there. I think, like, as much as we want to, pretend that business is moving away from like the individual, it's not. I mean, like, I have a relationship with Maxx and AJ, and Triple Whale and Shopify are partners. We do a lot together, but we are not selling widgets. None of us are living in this day of like Jack Welch at GE, where Jack Welch could have been at General Electric, or he could have been at IBM, or he could have been at like Goodyear Tire. He was selling widgets, and he was using this playbook of management at whatever company he was going to. It's not the case. For many of us in the room, our businesses are personal. In fact, I think they're getting even more personal, which means that there is a chance that I may be at Shopify for a very, very long time, and Maxx is going to be running Triple Whale for a very long time. Those personal relationships really, really matter. So what I'm suggesting around B2B is not removing that, but rather creating a new layer on top of it. So what happens after the handshake, I'm in, I just bought 12 watch winders from you, 16-year-old Harley, is great. The next 24 hours, you're gonna have the best experience purchasing from me, picking items, picking SKUs, doing returns, figuring out payment terms. If you wanna reorder or you need to do some sort of refund, it's all here as well, as opposed to the canonical response, which was, I'll have my office look into that. That is not acceptable anymore.
And is that built all within the Shopify platform, or is that using apps and throughout the store?
Some of it will be done. I mean, the Shopify app, many of you have heard this ad nauseum. I'll say it again. The Shopify model when it comes to apps and third parties is very simple. We do what most merchants need most of the time. For everything else, we invite incredible companies to build on top of that. Whether it's Triple Whale or it's Klaviyo or it's Globally or it's Stripe, we do the core thing that we think that is a must-have for every one of our merchants, and then we invite companies to actually build on top of us. One of the things that I think is not spoken about in this community that should be is that it's actually really, really good to make your partners really, really rich. It's really, really good to actually have very long-term relationships and be known as a very good partnering company. There's sort of this like frenemy meme in Silicon Valley We're not in Silicon Valley. I'm in Canada. Like, I'm so far from Silicon Valley. And we're in New York right now. But there is a real benefit to actually being a company that is notoriously great to partner with. And I think we're always going to make room for partners to make a lot of money and build incredible things on top of Shopify. Yeah, I hope one day they'll let me to the Triple Whale IPO like Andrew Clavio did. So one day.
You just touched on this before, but historically, Shopify has invested into the tech partners in the App Store. Is there a future, is there an appetite to partner with merchants, brands in the future to make everybody rich, as you just said?
Yeah, you mean invest in merchants?
Yeah.
Not something we're doing. It's just, we've never done that. We invest in companies on the sort of like an equity investment side that we want to see exist in the world, we want to see more of in the world, and want to have a closer relationship to. Obviously, people know about our partnership, but there's a lot of others that we've invested in. On the merchant side, the way that we invest is by creating the greatest product possible, making sure that they're as successful as possible. I don't think that would be the right thing for us. We've never invested in that type of stuff, and even personally, I don't invest in brands or merchants because we're there to serve them, and we're there to serve them by creating the very best products and making sure they're future-proofed in terms of where the industry is going. Yeah.
Hey, Harley, my name's Jay. Thank you so much for being here. With the rise of social commerce and more purchases happening on Meta, on TikTok, instead of the storefront itself, what's Shopify's perspective as a business on where you play a role in that in the future?
If this was 10 years ago, in your question, you would have also mentioned MySpace. And hopefully my response would have been, well, we also have MySpace as a channel partner. Our responsibility, okay, so we want to qualify for the following statement, that Shopify is the best platform to use now and in the future. So now we kind of know what's going on, we all do, we can kind of figure it out. But in order for us to qualify and then requalify each year to be effectively the commerce partner to the most important, incredible, creative, ambitious brands on the planet, we also have to future-proof their business, which means that when someone hears that there is a new channel that just opened up, I mentioned Pinterest before, so I'll stick with that one. When Buyable Pins came out, and all of you heard about Buyable Pins, that day, Buyable Pins, like Pinterest was already integrated on Shopify in our sales channels left nav. Why? Because the only way for us to qualify to be your long-term partner, not just now but in the future, is by the time you hear about it as a merchant, we already have it fully integrated into Shopify. Which is why, I don't think I'm giving away any trade secrets here, but like when Bill Reddy left Google, who's running commerce at Google, to go run Pinterest, like literally on his way, like out of the parking lot, I was on a call with him to figure out like what we can do at Pinterest. Because we anticipated at Shopify that something was going to happen at Pinterest from a commerce perspective, not for everyone, but for some people that could become a very important channel. And whether it's TikTok or it's Snap or it's Facebook or it's Instagram or it's something that none of us even heard of yet, our responsibility is to have it there. We have an integration with a marketplace called Reverb. Reverb is a used musical instruments marketplace in Chicago. For 99.99% of merchants, it does not matter. But there's some merchants on Shopify who really want to push product to Reverb, and we want to make that really easy. And so that's our responsibility. Whether it's, you guys probably see stuff that we're pushing out or I'm pushing out on social around AR or VR, and you're like, that feels kind of gimmicky. It may feel gimmicky right now, but eventually it's not going to be gimmicky. It's going to be a massive sales channel, and you're going to want it to you're going to want to push products through it, and you're going to want it to integrate into Triple Whale so you see that exact channel in your dashboard. That's the responsibility that we bear. Otherwise, we have no right to say that we qualify to be your long-term retail partner, your commerce partner. And the only thing that gives us the right is that we have to be ahead of what you want before you even know you need it. And I think we do that pretty well. We can always do better, but I think we do that pretty well at Shopify.
We got time for one more question.
He was going to throw it to you, but you weren't looking, and he didn't want to hit you in the head. It's very kind of him.
Thanks. Hi.
Hi.
Getting back to B2B, I have two questions for you. One is, any thoughts about EDI connections, directly connecting in? And the second question is, can you talk a little bit about Shopify Collective?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Collective is sort of, I mean, on the EDI stuff, we've already put out some stuff on there. We're working on that right now. It's a must-have. By the way, that's part of, there's certain things in the B2B world that we're like, that doesn't make sense. We don't agree with it. We're not going to do that because we want to invite the traditional B2B world into our, I don't know, into our version of what we think reality should be. There's another version, there's another way that's like, these are must-haves if you want to play in this particular industry. EDI is one of them. So is things like some very sophisticated pricing rules, which really are not necessary on a consumer, in a direct-to-consumer side, but very important on wholesale. On the collective side, I think Shopify Collective is one of the most interesting things because effectively it means that any nil search that any merchant has can now be filled by someone else on the Shopify platform. And you talked about unobvious. One of the greatest unobvious moves in commerce over the last 12 months, not that he needs more credit, but I'm going to give him credit anyway, is what Drake and his team did, and particularly Matt Babel, who's Drake's manager. What Matt and Drake did together with number one, walking out of a concert, making sure the people who were at the concert got exclusive drops using a QR code. I thought that was incredible. And then Drake Related, which effectively was Drake saying, there are all these crazy products on the Shopify platform. I'm going to create a digital version of the Embassy, which is his home in Toronto. And each room you go to, you're going to see another product on Shopify that I think is really cool. And so you went to his pool area and you had these incredible inflatables. And you saw backpacks around his office area. That was a huge, huge retailer that didn't have any inventory, that didn't design any products, didn't do any fulfillment. And every retailer that was involved with DrakeRelated.com had one of their biggest years ever, but they didn't sell anything direct to consumer. Even though they don't have a wholesale business, using Collective, they were able to collaborate. So I think Collective is really cool. It's still pretty early for Collective, but I suspect that you're gonna see more of these, more brands that you love. Ember mugs, I love Ember mugs. I'd love to buy some tea on Ember, like on the Ember website at some point. And I don't think Ember should do it. They should buy from another tea company or from a tea company. I think that idea of knowing really well who's coming in and what they're looking for, and then curating the best products across the entire Shopify community, I think it's gonna lead to some really cool things. Yeah, great question. Yeah.
Amazing.
Before we go, Zev, are you backstage? I think he's back. I got something for you. Hold on. Okay.
Oh, yeah?
You didn't know,
A little off script.
This is totally off script. Thank you. Okay. So I'm going to say this in front of everyone. I was going to do it backstage, but all of you, show of hands, how many of you are parents? Okay, a lot of parents in the crowd. You have 4 kids?
Yes.
And newborn, I think, right? Or sort of
Yeah.
newborn? And AJ has 3 kids?
Yeah.
Okay. So some of you heard this story. I know I'm taking up more time, but I don't really care. This is really important to me. And I got a microphone, so sorry. Some of you heard the story. When I was a kid, parents, you know the story really well. My parents didn't have a lot of money, but one thing my dad did was every time I had a silly business idea, my father would make me a business card that said Harley Finkelstein, whatever, owner, CEO, DJ company, t-shirt company, whatever. And that gave me incredible chutzpah and audacity and confidence to become a real entrepreneur longer term. I have 2 daughters, Bailey and Zoe. And one of the things that I've noticed, Zoe's 5, Bailey's 7, is that they're in school, they're in a good school in Montreal, and the teacher, they're both going through sort of a similar type of thing, which is the teachers are part, the curriculum moment we're in right now is, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I fucking hate that. Because I think what it's doing is it's creating the sense with kids, sorry, I'm not about to swear on stage, but too late. It's creating a sense with kids that they have to wait to a particular point in their life to actually begin to start to build. And so out of frustration, this is so weird, I wrote a kid's book. And it's called We Can Be Entrepreneurs. And it's basically a story of me and 2 other Shopify merchants, one who's actually 16 years old, who just sold a painting for $100,000, and one who's 13 years old, who just had her first runway show, a fashion show for her fashion company. And it's a book about, and I'm gonna give you one for AJ, but I'd love you to read it to your kids. And those of you that have parents, that are parents in the crowd that have kids, most of your kids are currently being asked what they want to be when they grow up, and I encourage you to talk to them about the fact that they don't have to wait for some magical moment, that the greatest companies and some of the most interesting things were invented by people that were younger and had no idea what they were doing. They were naive and they were ambitious and exciting. And I want you guys to have it. And I hope your kids, I hope I'll be on stage with one of your 4 kids at some point talking about their company. So
Amazing.
There you go. Yeah.
Your passion for entrepreneurship is infectious, and I think everyone here can hear it. And thank you so much for making the trip out here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. That was good.